Electronic musicians are always talking about UFOs. Today we are going to let a UFO control our synthesizers. This is How to Regressor 2D UFO Acid. Earlier this year, the US government released a whole bunch of UAP videos. We are going to use the coordinates of an object from one of those videos to control a whole bunch of acid parameters in Ableton. To do this, we need to be able to take a two-dimensional input and use it to drive multi-dimensional parameters in our synthesizer. And for that, we're going to use Regressor. Regressor is a new control system for Ableton that uses machine learning for mapping and modulation. I've made the project files for this available. There's a link to the download in the description. Everything I'm using is stock Ableton Suite instruments and effects, with the exception of Regressor, which is available from AudioBulb, and there's a link to that as well in the description. This will be a tale told in 3 parts. Part 1, How to Acid. Part 2, How to Regressor Acid. And Part 3, How to UFO Acid. Acid gets its name from the 1987 record Acid Tracks by Future. In Acid Tracks, the artists are using a Roland TB-303 to pioneer this sound that was hugely influential on generations of producers. We're going to be doing this in Ableton using Drift, which is a simple but great sounding subtractive synthesizer. I'm going to set up oscillator 1 to use a square wave, specifically this second one, where the wave shaping knob controls the pulse width modulation. I'll turn on oscillator 2 as a sine wave 1 octave below. I'm gonna put drift into mono mode, which exposes this thickness parameter. And I'm gonna make sure legato is on with a little glide time so that overlapping notes slide into each other. After drift in my effects chain, I've got this vocoder, which is taking audio from the next track over. And I'm gonna take these two devices and group them into an instrument rack. I like doing this because I can find the things that I want to control inside my rack and assign those to macro knobs, and that gives me a cleaner interface when I'm working with Regressor. Let's play some of this bass line, and as we're listening to it, we will assign the parameters that we want to tweak onto macro knobs and listen to what they do to the sound. I'll start with this wave shaping knob. Doesn't matter what order we do this in, I'm just going from left to right. This is my frequency of the filter. We'll get the resonance of the filter, which gives us that squelchy sound when it's high. I'm going to get the depth of my frequency envelope, which can give us that plucky sound when the cutoff frequency is low. I'm going to get the release time on envelope 1, which can let me have some staccato notes or long notes. And I'll get this thickness parameter. And that gives us a whole bunch of different acid style sounds that we can dial in. I'm also going to grab this vocoder dry wet, which this is not orthodox acid, I'm sorry, but it does sound hella cool. All right, so this is awesome. We've got like so many different sweet acid sounds we can dial in here, but it is a whole lot of stuff to have to automate or map. And these sweet spots, they're not random, they're in very specific places. So this brings us to part 2, How to Regressor Acid. We are going to control all 7 of these parameters using one XY pad. Think of it as like a joystick, and as we're moving this joystick around, we're going to be able to interpolate between very specific sweet spots that we choose so that we have control over all of these parameters at once with a very simple interface, and we're always kind of moving between cool sounding acid worlds as we do so. So I am going to hide my devices with this button now that I've got my macro knobs set up, and I will add a regressor onto this track. Regressor, when you open a new one, comes with this pre-trained model where the XY pad makes the sliders dance. I'm going to delete that training data with the reset button, and I'll set up Regressor to have the same number of outputs as I have in my instrument rack, 7, and then I'll map the outputs of Regressor onto my macro knobs. So now these sliders in Regressor control all the macro knobs that I just mapped them onto. Keep in mind, Regressor does not make sound and it does not change sound on its own. Think of Regressor as a MIDI controller with a brain inside it, and just like a brain, for it to do something useful, it needs to learn some things first. So we're gonna teach Regressor where are these like sweet spots in our acid synth that we like, and we're going to associate them with specific places in this XY pad so that we can move the pad around and move in between all of those spaces. Before we get started, if you want to change the range of the outputs here, you can do that. By default, it's 0 to 100. I'm going to change this one, the filter modulation. So instead of going down to 0, it only goes down to 75. So this slider from Regressor is just making my macro knob dip down to 3/4. Okay, let's find some good sounds. Okay, I like that one, and I am going to teach Regressor that this output should correspond to this place on the XY pad. I'll click Add Points, and that adds 1 point to our data set. I'll go down into this corner now and put a new sound down here. Yeah, maybe something like that. I'll go up here now. I'll do that. I'll go down to the last corner, and this time I'll click randomize to see if I get something good. This is randomizing all the outputs. I like that, so I'll click add points, and I've got 4 points in my data set. We can exit training mode by unclicking this, and we can now move around in between these 4 different acid worlds. And like, we're really getting a lot of cool sounds as we move between all of those spaces. And we could always add more. Like, I could put something in the middle here. I'll go back into training mode and get a big, yeah, a real gnarly one, and I'll put that there. So we've got gnarly in the middle, clean, yeah. We could record these motions into our track if we wanted to. Let's put it all down in Ableton. And if we go play it back, let's look at what we recorded and re-enable our timeline. You can see our XY movement got recorded. And there you go. That is how you do it. That is how to Regressor Acid. That brings us to part 3, how to UFO Acid. This is the easy part. First of all, you just need a video of a UFO. I put a link in the description to where I got this one from the US government. And I am going to load that into Touch Designer, where I'm doing blob tracking, and then I'm using the coordinates of the first blob that's detected and sending it back to Ableton as MIDI. I'm not going to get too in-depth with the Touch Designer part of this, but we'll go over it quickly. So we've got the video player here, and then I am putting it through a level top and increasing the contrast, which gives me good separation of this object against the background. And then I'm feeding that into the built-in blob tracker, which reports all the information about the blobs it finds into this table. I'm using the table then to do some simple visuals where I'm drawing a rectangle, and I'm also printing the coordinates and overlaying that on top of the video. And then for sending the MIDI out, I'm just extracting the XY coordinates of the first blob and sending them out as MIDI data. To get this into Ableton, you'll need to use some kind of inter-application MIDI. So on a Mac, you can use the, what do you call it, IAC MIDI bus. You go into your Touch Designer MIDI mapping and make sure you've got some kind of inter-application MIDI output there. So this is going to come into Ableton on channel 100, controller 10 and 11. In Ableton, I think that shows up as 9 and 10. And I'm going to deactivate these so that I can do MIDI mapping. Back in Ableton, my MIDI settings have the IAC driver available for MIDI mapping. I will go into MIDI mapping, click on the X coordinate, and then turn on the MIDI out from my X coordinate in Touch Designer. And you can see that got mapped. Let's turn it off. And then we'll go back into MIDI mapping, click on the Y, turn on the Y output, and you can see that one got mapped too. And I'll turn on both X and Y from Touch Designer, and we can see the X and the Y are both moving around. Let's go into Perform mode in Touch Designer, and hooray, yes, you can see our XY pad is following the UFO. Let's turn our synth back on. Yes, this is how you do it. As our UFO is moving around in the video, our XY pad is following it in Ableton. The XY coordinates are driving all of our acid parameters. That is how you 2D UFO acid. Thank you very much for joining me. Please check out Regressor. I'm looking forward to seeing what you all do with it. Take care, have fun, bye.